And good evening everybody, and welcome back to the Grand Prestige League here. It is round 4 of our LMP Masters Championship. We are heading here to the Circuit de la Sarthe here in France, taking on the 1 hour of Le Mans here. We're already over halfway through this series, which is crazy to me. Well, actually this will be our official halfway point. So looking forward to see how this one does play out. It's going to be a fun race. Lots of very talented drivers here. But yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how this race does play out. I mean, Le Mans is such an interesting circuit, so you're going to definitely see a lot of drivers trying to use their car allocation wisely. This is a track with the most straights out of the remaining tracks on the calendar, and probably even the entire calendar, I would say. So once again, as always, my name is Patrick Coleman, aka Rekus. I'll be your host and commentator through today's broadcast and through today's race here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. Want to give a massive shout out to our sponsor, W.GG. They have been partnering us for the entirety of the season, and they will continue to partner with us throughout pretty much everything. So I want to make a massive shout out to them. Use promo code GPL at the checkout, and you will go ahead and get yourself a nice discount, and then also you'll be supporting the league, so we can do some really fun stuff. Just gonna go tell the race director that we can go ahead and go. Yeah, I also do want to mention that Lucian is unwell today, so he is not competing on the grid today. He mentioned earlier on in our Discord server that he was having a massive headache and a fever, so we do want to wish him the speediest of recoveries. And hopefully he does recover, and hopefully we will see him back next time when we go ahead and take to the penultimate round in the essentially regular season. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and just get right on into it. I'm just going ahead doing a few things really quickly. So for right now, it is just myself in the commentary booth, but we do have Nuko going ahead and just giving basically the rundown of everything. We should have B23 joining us at some point during the race. He's not here yet, but I have the utmost faith that he will be joining us at some point here today. But we are pretty much ready to go here for 1 hour of Le Mans, and it's gonna be a fun race here, because I mean it's been a fun season so far, and we're gonna get into some even more enjoyable action here. And honestly, Le Mans is such a fun track. It's historic. It's got some really good overtaking opportunities, especially down the Mulsanne Straight. Everybody's going ahead and giving readies in the chat. We do have quite a few drivers out on circuit. We have a 10-car grid today. It is Nuko, Comer, King, Yuki, JD Killswitch, BP, Keminger, May JP, Rogue, and your local tall man jumping into the race here today. So we have 10 drivers getting ready to go. And we're gonna jump out on track just to go ahead and show you what you actually came here for. There we go. Now it just decided to load on in. As we're about to go ahead and get started with qualifying here, it is 15 minutes of qualifying. But here's the thing, this track is the longest outlap of the entire season. So you really got to go ahead and make your moves. Or you pretty much got to get out early and get some good laps in before everything else, before you run out of time, because it's really easy to run out of time here. So just to go ahead and give you guys a reminder of what the rest of the calendar is going to go ahead and look like. After today, 2 weeks from now, we head to Watkins Glen, and then Fuji, which wraps up the regular season, and then the season finale, the one-make race at Suzuka on the 26th of October. So that's going to be pretty much, that's the rest of our season, and then it is the GPL 250 cooked up by B23 himself. So that should be a lot of fun. It'll be in the F3500, essentially the generic 90s Formula 1 car that they brought into the game a few updates ago. I still think that is one of the best cars that they have brought in any recent update, but regardless, it's going to be a fun race, and we got qualifying just getting underway, and we're going to go ahead and hit right to the track. Drivers are definitely going to want to get this outlap done as soon as possible because it is a pretty lengthy outlap. It's going to take over 3 minutes for these drivers, so a fifth of their time here is going to be just on a singular outlap. So they'll get a few laps in, but the outlap does take quite a while here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. So we have our first drivers making the outlaps right now with championship leader Nuko. We'll go to run through the standings as these cars go ahead and go through. Just gonna go take a look at these. Alright, so here we go. After round 3, Nuko does lead the championship with 61 points, ahead of Lusion with 48, and then Ghosted, Alex, Pixel, also known as Yuki, May JP, Chemizure, Flaring Gazes, BP, Alvarks, Lauch, Rogue, Dunkadono, and Killswitch, which Nuko's main championship rival of Nuko is not here. Like I said earlier, he's sick, feeling a bit under the weather, but hopefully he does recover and he'll be back next week for Watkins Glen, one of the most historic American tracks that we have in any kind of form of motorsport. It's been around for a very long time, but Le Mans is even older because Le Mans opened in 1923. This 13-kilometer long circuit is the longest on the calendar and one of the longest tracks in Gran Turismo. The only tracks longer than it are the Nordschleife and Special Stage Route X. Every other track is shorter than Le Mans, and then in terms of our calendar, it is the longest track on the calendar. You can get some really good slipstreams here on this circuit, especially down the Mulsanne Straight, as Rogue already has a half-second time penalty in the high caliber racing Porsche. So interesting thing is that there's a lot of actually now it's been upgraded to a 1 second time penalty. So the thing is that there is car allocation, and these drivers are starting to run out of cars that they can use. So some drivers are out of cars entirely. So the Audi is definitely going to be the predominant car that you'll see here. Although you will see some interesting ones like Nuko opting to run the Toyota, but we saw in Daytona, me and myself and B23 were thinking like, oh, the Toyota is going to be kind of an iffy car to use, but we saw Nuko do some work in it. Although granted, this is a series that really seemed to play to Nuko's strength here. So let's actually go ahead and take a look at the car allocation while these cars are still making their outlaps. So right now, Lusion and Nuko were banned from using the Audi this race alongside Chemizure because they used the Audi previously. No Audi for them this round, which actually does make sense on why Nuko is going to run the Toyota for this round. And then we go to King, which King, this is his first round in this series, so he has no bans that he has to worry about. Same with Comer. Comer has no bans that he has to really worry about. May JP, talking about him, May JP was banned from using the Toyota and the Porsche. He has used both of his Toyota allocations. So now he has, so the only option he had was that Audi, which I mean, it's not a bad car to have here. I think it's probably one of the most ideal cars to have around the circuit just to kind of kick things off. But yeah, so MayJP is no longer allowed to use the Toyota. He has used his entire allocation of Toyotas. So for those of you who may be new to the series and may not understand what the allocation process is that there are 3 LMP2 or LMP1 cars, apologies, that you can use here, and you can use each one twice, but not back to back. So few drivers don't have any bans at all. Louch, if he was in today's race, he wouldn't have any bans. BP and Aces don't have any bans coming into this race. But for MayJP, he's used both of his Toyotas, so he cannot use another Toyota. So pretty much for the next 3 rounds, he will be flip-flopping between the Audi and the Porsche. Next round will be the last round he can use the Audi for. Or sorry, the last round he can use the Porsche for. And then for Fuji, he will be running that Audi. Adds a bit of extra strategy to the driver choices, or what the driver chooses for their cars, as we see Yuki and MayJP going down the Mulsanne straight. Talking about Yuki now. Yuki is also in a somewhat similar situation because he is also out of Toyotas. So he has only the Porsche and Audi left to go. This is his first time using the Audi all season. In the first round he used the Toyota. So for Pixel, for rounds 1 through 3 he went for Toyota, Porsche, Toyota. And now he's in the Audi because that's his only other option. But once again, the Audi is not a bad car for this track, and I can tell that there's, I mean, it makes sense for a lot of drivers to want to run that Audi. We see Rogue here in the Porsche, running the high caliber racing Porsche machine. Now with Rogue, he was only pretty much prohibited from using the Toyota, so he had free range of the Audi or the Porsche, and he opted in for the Porsche. So pretty much he's only used one. He made his in-season debut here from last round at Spa. So he really doesn't have anything to really worry about. He can pretty much almost go free reign for the rest of the season. Now BP, in pretty much a very similar boat, except he had every car available to him because he only competed in round 1. He used the Toyota then, and he pretty much had free reign to use whatever car he wanted. So now he is in the Toyota. Or sorry, he's in the Porsche. And then Tall Man, first race here, so he had free reign of whatever car he wanted to use. Killswitch, taking a look at him now. Killswitch, once again, didn't have any bans. He only competed in round 1 so far. He does have the Audi. The Audi was the only car used. He is using the Porsche this time around. And taking a look at Kemajur. Now, Kemajur has been around for pretty much every single race this season, and he's pretty much had pretty balanced usage of cars. He pretty much has used every car once already. He used the Audi last week, so he is prohibited from using said Audi, but this puts him in the HoloLive Porsche, which I'll have to dig up that list and find out which VTuber is on it, because as the HoloLive Racing team, the team prides themselves on using popular VTubers on their machines. And he actually, before the season actually started, he actually gave me a list of which VTuber is on which car, which is honestly pretty impressive knowledge there. That's, I guess you could call that elite VTuber knowledge. I'm not sure if that's the appropriate thing to say, but nevertheless, it's pretty much where we're at right now. So right now, Nuko does have the fastest time of the qualifying session right now as we're over halfway through. It is a 3:23, but he's only 7 thousandths of a second ahead of Comer, who is currently sitting in P2. Now, Nuko has won every single race this season so far, so Comer coming in for the first race of the season for him. And the Portuguese driver putting in a really strong qualifying performance to kick things off here. We might see a different winner for the first time this season. Nuko's dominance may be starting to be challenged a bit here, but we'll have to see. Once again, everything is possible in racing. The only predictable thing about racing is that it is unpredictable by nature. And we'll just take a look at the times here so far. King is about 1.4 seconds off of Comer's time and also Nuko's. MayJP about 2 seconds off of the pole time, but currently sitting in P4, which is a pretty good result for MayJP. Yuki currently in P5, and then everybody behind him has yet to set a time. As we do see Rogue going a bit off track, kind of struggling in that Porsche. As Killswitch does go ahead and get into the pits, he really needs to get back going, or else he just won't have enough time to go ahead and do a lap. So the main strategy for the race here today is you definitely want to go ahead and maximize the slipstream if you're wanting to get an overtake done, because I mean you have the Mulsanne straight, which is a straight so powerful that they had to put 2 curves in the middle of it. They had to slap some chicanes in there to prevent cars from doing backflips, as I'm sure a lot of you do know that cars used to go so fast. I think the speed record is still held by one of the Peugeots who hit 250 something miles an hour, or like 300 some kilometers. I think it was 308, like 308 kilometers an hour I think was the top speed, because they ended up using that to make a, like they named their hot hatch after that speed record, I think. So now coming across the line to begin another lap is Comer. We'll see how these drivers go ahead and do. Now MayJP is certainly a fan favorite. He always has a lot of support every single time he is on the track, and there's a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation on where he's going to end up when it comes to the Super Formula season starting in November. Some rumors were saying that he's going to go ahead and join High Caliber Racing because he is well affiliated with that team. He was also considering joining in with his own racing team, or he might enter in as a solo privateer. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I know he was a very strong talent over in the Draken Racing League, who is, funny enough, hosted by the driver currently in P3 of King. But it'll be interesting to see where he goes when it comes to the Super Formula season. My bet is on that he's going to be in... I'm going to place a bet that he's going to be with High Caliber Racing, because High Caliber Racing in the Super Formula series, they want to return to form. Hasn't been the strongest of seasons for them last time out, so they're definitely going to want a good return to form here. But still, I think MayJP is one of the most exciting prospects coming into GPL for Super Formula. He does have some Super Formula experience. He actually, the other day, he actually messaged me about which Super Formula livery he should run. And I gave my opinion, but MayJP is also a very talented livery designer. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. I know there's quite a few drivers that had their seats pretty much locked in for Super Formula. Some announcements will be made probably in the near future about some official placements, but that's for when the signups do appear. There's also the driver who jumped in last round 2 weeks ago of Alvarks, potentially bringing his own team in with B&R Motorsports, potentially bringing that squad in. Also, Scuderia, or I think they're just called Racing Force now. Racing Force is going to jump back in as well, and so it's another new team on the grid. A lot of rumors of other teams jumping in. The rumors of the LFO squad potentially jumping on in would be a bit of an interesting one to see until they get scooped up by an organization. So there's a lot of rumors and stuff around the Super Formula season that I'm actually really looking forward to. As Chemistry is going to come across the line. He sets a personal best. It is a 3:29, about 6 seconds off the pace of Nuko, but once again, Nuko still having the fastest time set from early on. BP, Tallman, and Rogue still have yet to set times here, as we'll see what Nuko's doing. Nuko is about 0.8 of a second up on his previous lap time, so Nuko is looking to set a new benchmark lap for all these drivers to really try to go ahead and pass, as we ride on board now with the Frenchman, our championship leader and the Super Formula World Elite Championship champion from season 6 and multiple seasons before that. He's going to come across the line a half a second quicker, so that is a 3:22 for the Frenchman. What about the Portuguese driver? Does he have anything to say? Does he have a response? Is he going to be able to set a new lap time? He's going to come across the line. 5/400ths of a second. It is pole position provisionally for Comer. And now they're just going to go at it again. Actually, no, Comer's done. He won't have enough time for another outlap. Nuko's done as well. So Comer jumping into pole position on his in-season debut here for the LMP Masters. Comer is definitely no stranger to racing in GPL. He is a multiple race winner in the Super Formula Series, so he's definitely got pace. And every time we see Comer, he doesn't show up super often, but the Portuguese driver does it very well when he does show up. So Comer taking pole position, and that actually, I think that actually snaps the pole position streak of Nuko. So this race could turn out to be very interesting, but here's the thing. One lap pace is one thing, but then you have all the other laps that will be taken through the course of the hour. So we'll see probably around 20-ish laps roughly. Probably a little less than that, but we'll see how it goes. Very excellent stuff here from these drivers. Le Mans is it's such a unique track, honestly, because I mean it becomes really challenging at night. Because look at this, you can't even see Nuko's car, you could just see his headlights. That is all you can see. We'll see who was on it. Oh, well, MayJP. Although a second row start is, I think, his best qualifying position so far this season. So that's good for MayJP. Even though he's not going to improve his time. BP's in the pits. Yuki's on the outlap, so that's pretty much qualifying done for everybody except for Rogue. Rogue is going to be the last driver who can go ahead and get a good, at least he can improve his time. He can, well, for him, it'd be setting a first time for the Japanese driver from High Caliber Racing. Now, seeing Rogue and MayJP on the same squad would be interesting. Because I know Rogue has ties with Exodus Motorsports as well, so I'll be really curious to see how that does play out. Once again, I'm really looking forward to the Super Formula Series, but that doesn't mean we have less exciting racing here with the LMP Masters, because it has been a lot of fun, a lot of drama, a lot of contact, but also some absolute displays of driving prowess. We've seen it from Nuko, we've seen it from Lujan. We've seen it from quite a few drivers here on the grid. But with Comer now taking pole position, that actually does shake things up quite a bit. And hey, F16 potentially just now saying he might join in. Honestly, I believe in a very simple motto when it comes to drivers joining the Super Formula Series. The more the merrier, because there's a very good chance that there's a team that is going to be looking for drivers. I've also still heard that there's talks about allowing privateer teams to enter. I've heard that's been at least something considered, but we'll see. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Super Formula season goes out, but I'm still curious to see how the rest of this season is going to play out, as Rogue does set a time, but he is about 15 seconds away from Tallman, with Kilsuch not being able to set a time. So that is pretty much qualifying done and dusted. Comer's going to come across the line. His time is done. Pretty much everybody is done here. Actually, MayJP is the last driver still out on track. I think he will run out of time, though. He's got to finish here soon. He's not in the improvement, but nobody behind him is. Oh, it's a big spin for MayJP. MayJP touching a little bit of grass and just getting spun around in that Audi. Time is up, but pole position does go to Comer as we go ahead and run through our qualifying results here. Comer does take pole position by 0.04 of a second. That is a very quick lap time compared to Nuko. And then it is King, MayJP, BP, Yuki, Kemmerer, your local Tallman, and then Rogue and Killswitch, which Killswitch was unable to set a lap time. So that was a really close qualifying session between the top two, and I think this race is going to get extremely spicy as we go ahead and get ready to race here. And alright, so we are resetting the lobby back to its original state. We'll see how this one goes, because I mean, once again, Le Mans is a track where overtaking is very, very possible, especially down the Mulsanne straight. And there's a lot of other corners too that you can really go for it as well. Don't touch the Porsche in the curb, or don't touch the curbs in the Porsche. This is the best lap he has done here at the circuit. That's very impressive. I think I actually don't remember if I've actually done a time trial lap in any of these LMP1 cars. I know for a fact that my fastest lap time around here is in the Tomahawk X, which is definitely not comparable, but I have done some laps here in a Super Formula car, and I honestly would love to see this race for Super Formula. Once again, I'm not sure how good that would work. I know we're going to be getting ready to announce a calendar here soon, probably shortly after the GPL 250, the week, which I believe is taking place the week after the season wraps up, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think it's gonna be at Monza. If B23 was here, he'd be able to kind of talk about it a bit more, but we'll see. Some drivers are taking a bit of a step back, so I'm gonna take a quick step back and we'll jump back in very soon. Alright, so we are back here, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna go ahead and get started here soon. I know, wow, my throat just went ahead and jumped off a cliff apparently. But anyways, we're gonna go to get racing here pretty shortly. But in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and do, at least until we get started, we're gonna go ahead and do some history lessons here. And it is time for history lessons with Ruckus. So get ready for some fun here. So this current layout that we see here for the Circuit de la Sarthe, or this iteration I should say, has been around since about 2016 roughly, at least in Gran Turismo terms. It's an interesting one. It is 8.47 miles, 13.63 kilometers. With 21 corners. It is considered a high-speed track with BOP, which there is BOP in the series, but you're still allowed to tune your downforce, your ride height, and your brake bias. So limited tuning, but there's still tuning allowed here. But naturally, this is a high-speed track, especially because you can pick up so much speed down the Mulsanne straight. It is a very historic circuit. So the Peugeot P88 was the car that has one of the highest speed records on the circuit, reaching over 250 miles an hour and around 400 kilometers an hour. So these drivers were getting some very crazy speeds before they started adding in the chicanes. So there's two little chicanes on the Mulsanne straight. But even though they added those chicanes to kind of slow down the cars going through that straight, you can still get some really good overtakes down this Mulsanne straights. You still have a lot of tarmac in between, because effectively the Mulsanne straight is now pretty much broken up into three sections. You have the starting section, and then after the first chicane you go into the second stretch, and then after the next chicane you pretty much go into the final little mini stretch, which isn't officially called part of the Mulsanne straight, but it essentially is an extension of that Mulsanne straight. But you can get some pretty spicy moves done around here. There's gonna be a lot of drag racing here on today's race. And also another fun fact is this is a track that has been around longer than I believe it was World War II. Well, World War II definitely. I think World War I as well, but I'm a bit more iffy on that front. But the Circuit de los Arts has been around for a very long time. It is older than pretty much 100% of the people I know. So I know some of us feel like we're older than the Circuit de los Arts. I know, especially as people do tend to get older, like my unk self, even though I'm only 22, but ignore that. We do feel like we're pretty old sometimes, but if you ever feel old, just remember that this track is older than probably 2 World Wars. So make of that information as you will. But all jokes aside, the Circuit de los Arts, I mean, 24-hour Le Mans. It's also used a different layout, I will say, and a layout I really wish they would actually just bring to Gran Turismo at some point. There is another version of the circuit known as the Bugatti circuit, which uses the Dunlop curve, but it doesn't use the Mulsanne straights at all. It is it's a race that is used for MotoGP. I do wish they would bring that layout into Gran Turismo, but it is a 2.6 mile long layout, 4.1 kilometers, compared to the 8.4 miles and 13 kilometers that we have here at the layout that we are actively using. But enough of the history facts. We're going to go ahead and get racing here. It'll be a short formation lap to the line, a good rolling start. Comer leads ahead of Nuco, and we're going to get racing here very, very shortly. So we are getting ready. We're going to go ahead. You hear those lights coming on, and we are racing here in Le Mans. It is time to see how these 10 drivers will fare on this Circuit de los Arts, as it's going to be a run down through the Dunlop curve, as Nuco and Comer are going to go jockey for position, and a bit of contact there between May JP and Yuki. We're going to have to see that one on a replay. So this is May JP in P4, and I do see BP has a bit of connectivity, but I think just a little bit of contact. Oh yeah, off into the runoff, and then that kind of just put a damper on his things. He does have rear suspension, but it is light damage, so it should actually fix itself. Yeah, it fixed itself before it even hit the Mulsanne straight. But a minute into this race, and we've already experienced some drama. And actually coming up here to the front, King has actually got ahead of the championship leader of Nuco. So the 2 drivers who are competing in their first LMP Masters race today have both, I mean, they've already taken P1 and P2. Nuco going to go around the outside, go try to win this drag race here. The Audi is going to be a bit better on straight line though, so we'll see how this plays out between these 2 drivers, as Nuco is going to go ahead and just tuck right in as Comer starts to build up a gap, trying to defend going into the second chicane on the Mulsanne straight. King does still keep the lead in that Audi, or keeps the position in the Audi, I should say, not in the lead at the moment anyway. But Nuco is just losing time behind King that he could be using to try to catch up to Comer. And we're going to see if Nuco can get a pass done around the outside, coming into what I like to call the end of the Mulsanne. No, but King is putting his car in a really good spot. The veteran driver going ahead and putting his car in a good spot here, forcing Nuco to go ahead and take a different line. But Nuco does get the inside, but King is going to try to just tuck right in and try to benefit from that slipstream. And then pretty much, here's the crazy thing about Le Mans, is that even after the massive Mulsanne straight that you just went on, you have another decently long straight just shortly after it, going down the Courbe de Golf, as it is known. Now they're going through Indianapolis. And once again, King has been doing a really solid job here, putting on a good defense. He does have the inside line, going to try to force Nuco around the outside, doesn't quite get it. Actually, no, Nuco does get it. He is up in the P2, but this battle is not over yet. BP is also not too far behind. He's got Yuki for company though. Yuki, I think, is going to try to make a move now onto the Frenchman, but jumping back up here, where one Frenchman is under pressure, the other one is under even more pressure from King, as King is trying to assert himself on the throne of P2 in this race so far. But once again, it is an hour-long race, so there's still a lot of racing to go through here. But Nuko has started to pull that gap away from King, and now he's going to try to go chasing after Nuko, or well, chasing after Comer. It is going to be interesting because the Audi is better on straight line speed when it comes to the circuit, so we'll see if Nuko can use his mastery so far to really put things into perspective. What happened to King here? We'll check it out on replay at the moment, but I think he must have made a mistake because BP is now pretty much right on the rear wing of the German driver, as BP is having a few connectivity issues. That is just an unfortunate part of racing sometimes. Hopefully that's just a thing on our end and not on the end of BP, where he's trying to actively race against King, but he's having a few starter steps. But let's go and check out that replay now. So this is King earlier on. So no real mistake, it was just BP just took that series of corners better. So no real mistake on King's part, at least not that we could catch from the replay. But now they're going to go back down to Mulsanne straight. The Audi, I still think the Audi is going to be a bit better on the straight line. So definitely advantage Audi, especially, I mean, he's not close enough to get a good slipstream off of Nuko anymore, but BP is definitely in a good spot to pick up a good amount of slipstream here as the Toyota is inching closer and closer. Actually, correction, the Porsche is inching closer and closer. BP, the French driver in the Porsche, is trying to put pressure onto the fellow German car that's just up the road ahead. As BP, I think BP does lose him a bit on the corners, but on the straights, he's in that slipstream, and that slipstream provides you such a good advantage. You're going to get so much extra speed off of that car ahead. So Yuki just buying with a half-second time penalty, but we'll stick on board with this battle here for P3, the French driver, looking to get a podium here. I mean, this is really a good shot because another consistent podium finisher of Lujan is not here. Once again, we wish him a speedy recovery, but he's not here at the moment, so this does leave a spot that would normally be occupied by the Norwegian driver on the podium pretty much wide open. So King and BP are going to duke it out here, as it is only lap 2 and the sun has already started setting here in the French hillside. So now overtaking is going to be a little bit more difficult, because we were talking about it earlier in the qualifying session, a little bit of bumping, a little bit of contact between King and BP. You gotta wonder how much of that is due to some connectivity on BP's part. More contact here as King is going to go in and try to stick the position, but no, BP did get ahead. But now it's going to be a drag race now through the most technical section of the racetrack. King is going to try to think about a move. They're pretty much side by side, just about, as they make their way through these corners. Now, visibility on this track when it becomes nighttime is really tricky, because you have a few spots highlighted by floodlights like you saw there. But there's also a good part of the track where you really only have to rely on your headlights. I mean, this is King's view right now from the cockpit of the car. Not a lot of light to really work with here. AJP thinks, or is asking what I think about his livery. I mean, I said it earlier that AJP is a very talented livery designer, and that goes without saying. I think his livery here is fantastic. It is a really nice livery. I do dig like the kind of icy vibe that he has with a lot of his liveries. And actually, one of the liveries he showed me for Super Formula had that exact same pattern. So it's a very nice pattern indeed. But we're going to jump back up here to the battle. BP is pulling away in that Porsche now, comfortably in P3. As we go in and just cycle through the cars. Killswitch does have Rogue coming up on him. Killswitch, the only driver unable to set a lap time. Husvald, or he's actually moved up 2 positions, so he's been doing a very solid job here in the opening few minutes of today's race. the number 7 car from High Caliber Racing is going to go to try to put extra pressure on the kill switch now. It's going to be Toyota v Porsche. I'll be interested to see how this one plays. I think once again the Porsche is a bit stronger on the straight line, but especially because of that slipstream. That slipstream is going to make a world of difference here as they go to make their way through the Mulsanne straight. You can just see the little bits of illumination that we get from the Porsche as they make their way through the Mulsanne into the first chicane. They get through it, nicely done, and now they're going to go ahead and just go back through it. Go ahead and put the foot to the floor, the pedal to the metal. But it happens like a penalty for Rogue, so he must have went over the track limits there just to buy a little bit. And that is going to put a massive damper onto his race here. So as we see the sea of headlights coming down the end of the Mulsanne straight, I mean, a lot of these drivers are really just going to try to settle in. Tire degradation isn't really a massive issue here on this track, but due to the settings in the lobby, you will still see drivers at least make one pit stop for tires, probably also fuel as well. Because while this track does really burn up a lot of tires, it does burn up a lot of fuel because you are flat out through almost about half of the racetrack, especially down the Mulsanne straight and the straight after it. You're on some really, really good form here, and you really just burn through a ton of gasoline. Tons and tons of gasoline. I mean, we'll see. BP maybe having a bit of a snap. It's really hard to tell with this lighting, honestly. I mean, this track is basically pitch black. So, I mean, once again, this is what the drivers are looking at as they make their way through. We're on board with BP right now, as I think there's a bit of a moment in the backfield. I think that is May JP. Oh, that is a much earlier replay. Apologies for that. That was a much earlier replay. Let's see if we can get a replay for what happened with May JP. So just got a little bit onto the grass there. May JP was on a personal improvement. I don't think anything really happened to him. There we go. Replay thing is being a bit finicky, but we are back to live pictures now, as we are over 10 minutes into this 1 hour Le Mans. Previously I did do a 2.4 hour Le Mans, so that was fresh in my brain momentarily, but back onto the racing circuit we go. Nuko has really caught up to Comer now. He wants to still keep that 100% win streak, because his 100% pole position streak was snapped earlier on today with Comer taking pole. So he wants to at least keep one of those 100% records. So we'll see. I mean, that gap is closed up quite significantly, because Nuko did lose a good amount of time in the early stages of the race while trying to fight King for P2 at the time. Now he's got P2, he's pulled away about 8 seconds to BP, and now he's trying to catch up to the back of the Audi just up the road. Speaking of King and BP, they're still relatively close, but still not close enough for a fully fledged battle here right now, as King is going to go ahead and continue to try to he's going to want to put pressure on, but he's also not going to try to be cautious not to burn up too much resources. As we check through the rest of the field here, everybody is pretty far spread out. That is kind of the nature of Le Mans, but Rogue, even after his penalty from earlier on, Rogue is still trying to put pressure, thinking about trying to make a move into the chicane. Not going to happen this time around. Goes a bit wide. He might risk getting another penalty. He's on those soft tires, so he's going to have more grip through the corners, and you need good grip to get a good exit, because a good exit plus the slipstream is really how you're going to make your way through the circuit. We're riding on the hood now. We're on the rooftop of Rogue's Porsche here as he's trying to chase down kill switch. The gap is closing ever so slightly. Whoa, that is a move if I've ever seen one, but that is not going to pay out in his favor. Way too deep on the brakes, and I think he ended up getting hit with a reset. Let's check that one again on replay from a different angle. So yeah, he just braked way too late. I think he even locked up his brakes there. just going through the chicane and then just took a trip through the gravel, and he did get reset. So that is going to put a massive hurting on his chances of trying to overtake Killswitch now, as that gap was earlier at 5/10 of a second. Now it's at 5 seconds flat, as we are still continuing on here. Jumping back up towards the front, BP is pulling away still from King, and pretty much everybody is pretty far spread out. But for the little bit we can see the sky as these drivers go through, the sky does look really gorgeous here at Le Mans. That is one of the best skyboxes, I think, in the entire Gran Turismo franchise. It's just, you could just see the stars twinkling above as these drivers put in a very strong performance, the performance of the season for some of them. And this is actually the first time we've really had to see Nuko fight during this championship, because for the most part, he's had Illusion for company, but other than that, he just kind of runs away with it. But now, he's got Comer, who bested him in qualifying by 0.04 of a second, now besting him so far in the race. But Nuko does have the fastest lap so far, as about 15 minutes have elapsed in this race so far. Here's what we're actually going to do. As these cars are about to go down the Mulsanne straight, we're going to take a quick step back and allow you just to enjoy the sounds of this Porsche as it makes its way down the Mulsanne straight, and we'll be back. We are back here. Hopefully you enjoyed the sights and sounds of Nuko chasing down his race rival here in the Toyota as they made their way down the Mulsanne straight and now heading into the SSD Indianapolis. It looks like in some areas that Nuko does pick up a lot of distance here. Nuko has been really strong in that Toyota all season, but this is, or at least he was in Daytona. So in tracks that favor straight line speed, he can make this Toyota really work out for him, but this is the last time he will be able to use the Toyota. I mean, it makes sense for him to really like to use the Toyota because he has won the championship in Super Formula multiple times, as we have 2 drivers out of the race. We have lost Killswitch and we've lost Tallman, so now it is down to 8 drivers remaining. As we have about 43 minutes left to go in the session. We are 17 minutes in. As we go, it is soon to be lap 6 here for our race leaders. So we'll see how this one plays out. But King actually did catch up to the back of BP. So we'll see if this does become a really strong battle for P3. As we'll kind of keep an eye on how things are going between these top drivers. King is going to put some pressure on. He did set a new personal best lap, a 3:26.496, as he is trying to chase down the Frenchman of BP. Well, one Frenchman is fighting to keep his position. The other one is trying to gain it, as Nuko, current championship leader and GPL WEC champion, is going to try to chase down Comer. He's closed that gap up quite significantly since the last time we checked in with him. The gap is under a second now, and here's the thing, Comer's got better, he's got better battery right now, so I think that will play to the strength of the Audi, but we know Nuko's management is pretty solid. Comer is a bit better on tires, but I think Nuko's got him on fuel just a little bit, so I think these two are pretty much matching each other step for step here as they go through. Nuko setting purple sectors again here at the Circuit de la Sarthe, doing pretty much everything he can to just make this work. He's going to give it the old college try here, but I mean, if Comer can win this, then he will snap that win streak that Nuko has. Nuko is currently on he's won every single race this season. He's also had pole for every single race this season, but that pole position record got snapped. But we'll see if Nuko can still pile on the pressure and try to take, or make sure at least keeps one of his records this season intact. So it was internet issues that have ended Tall Man's race, which is very unfortunate. Sometimes you win the battle with the internet, sometimes you lose the battle with the internet. It just happens. It sucks. Nothing can really, there's no sugarcoating that, but it is unfortunate. Hopefully we'll see you again next round at Watkins Glen. Hopefully it'll be a better time for you. But yeah, best of luck to Tall Man next time out when we head to Watkins Glen 2 weeks from now. But in the meantime, you are more than welcome to chill out here in the YouTube chat. Go and drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. As we see, Nuko is closing that gap now under half a second in between himself and his race rival of Comer. The two drivers going to go ahead and duke it out here, going through the technical section of the circuit. The very strong Sector 3. We'll see how this one pans out. I think Nuko's got a really good shot. He's been doing really good here in terms of just closing that gap bit by bit. I mean, he's been pretty much improving on every single lap. The only lap he didn't really improve on since he started this race was on lap 5. He was about 260 tenths of a second slower, but he's still been quicker than Nuko, crucially. So it looks like he's on track for another fastest lap here on slightly worn mediums, but Comer didn't build out that gap quite a bit, so yeah, I think there was just a bit of a mistake there for Nuko, which does allow Comer to kind of start building that gap. BP and King are still fighting it out here for P3 now. King having a very good run. It is Porsche v Audi, just as opposed to Audi v Toyota up front. But we'll see how BP handles it. The wind is blowing decently. It's not nearly as strong as it was in Belgium 2 weeks ago, where we were running into like 30 feet per second of wind. Now it is at 9 feet per second, which is much more manageable. And these cars aren't as affected by the wind as our normal Super Formula cars are, and I would probably venture to say the F3500 from the GPL 250 that's running at the end of the season, or shortly after the end of the season. But here's the thing, BP is on very worn soft tires and King is on medium, so I think BP is going to have to come into the pits sooner rather than later. But look at this, King is trying to get a move done. BP blocking him just before the chicane. King is going to just tuck right in, but he's got another 2 shots to get him here. So he's going to try to get him down this backstretch now as we hop on board with the German driver as the sun starts to rise here a little bit. So the track is getting brighter, and now you even get a more gorgeous view of that nighttime sky here in France. French driver on his home track, trying to make it a double French podium, but King is going to think about it. A bit of a bump there from King. BP's he's gonna have to go hard on the brakes, but he does still make it through the corner. I wonder how much of that is connectivity, or if it was King just being a bit too late on the brakes there, or maybe even just trying to get a little bit of a bump draft to try to get that position. Jumping back up front to Nuko versus Comer. Comer does still have about a 1.5 second gap in between. So Nuko did flash the lights a little bit, so maybe Comer did something that he wasn't too appreciative of, but we will see. As Nuko gets ready to go ahead and just try to continue piling on the pressure. As we jump back now to King, really just starting to put pressure on the BP yet again. Looks like the rest of the field has spread out quite significantly here, as we are surprisingly already about halfway in this race. The race has gone by pretty quickly, honestly. I didn't think it was already almost half an hour since we started this race, but it is good to hear that we will see your local tall man go ahead and jump in for Watkins Glen. Curious to see how you'll do around that circuit. It's another circuit where you're going to use a good amount of speed, but it'll be interesting to see how the drivers go, because the last time we were at Watkins Glen was actually the last community series when we did the GT 500s. Good times. But look at this. King and BP are going out and duking it out now. They're ready for some real on-track fisticuffs as they go through. But Nuko has actually really started to fall away from Comer here. The Portuguese driver having a bit of an advantage here at the Circuit de la South. But now jumping back to this battle, but King is into the pits. So King is gonna, which is interesting that King is gonna try for the pits, because he's on the mediums. So he definitely had better tire life than the BP, but I think he just decided to call it into the pits anyway. King doesn't have damage, but even if he did, it is only light damage here, so that damage would have fixed itself after around 30 seconds. But here's the thing though too, Le Mans does have a very long pit time. I mean, it's a super long pit time here at Le Mans, and he's going to gas up as well. Pretty quick here on the fuel, so he'll probably try to still top off on fuel, I'd imagine, here for the Greek and German driver as he makes his way back out onto the circuit. He'll make it out just ahead of Keminger. He'll fall by BP and Yuki, as MayJP is going to try to close the gap to Yuki. Yuki's just kind of had a under the radar race here. Another driver running that soft tire compound, so he's probably going to pit in probably pretty soon-ish. As we'll take a look at the lap time comparison between Yuki and BP. So almost actually about over 2 seconds quicker between Yuki and BP. Bordering on about 3 seconds quicker. So MayJP does have some pretty solid pace right now in that Audi. His tires are looking good, but Yuki is just starting, I think it's starting to start on these soft tires. The driver running the Undertale livery, hopefully not driving in his car after drinking a beer, because that'd be very irresponsible drinking and driving, although it is sim racing, but I still cannot advise drinking and driving here for Yuki, but I doubt that's the case. But MayJP is putting on some really good time, but he actually has lost about a second of time compared to his previous lap time here, so we'll see how this pans out. I'm really going to be interested on this, because Nuko's best hope is to come to try to undercut Comer, because they're both on the same tires, about the same fuel, so it's really just going to have to be who's got the more pace on the second stint, because right now Comer's definitely got the advantage in that Audi on the second stint, or on the first stint. That goes pretty much without saying here. So interesting to see how that one plays out. I'm really curious on when these soft runners are gonna pit, because right now BP's got less tire life than Yuki does at the moment, but Yuki's tire life is also not exactly super great either. So it'll be, I mean, strategy is always an interesting thing to me when it comes to just racing, and especially with these timed races, because when it's the super Formula races, you typically do have a set plan because it's based on laps, and the time progression isn't usually as big of a thing here for the super formulas. But sorry to hydrate a bit, but with these cars, there's extra management that you have to do. You have to also manage your battery and just the different recharge methods and deployment strategies that these cars tend to have. I did see a YouTube video a few months ago now, but people were saying that they need actual energy deployment to be a thing in the next Gran Turismo game, and honestly I would agree with it, because I think if you had deployment strategies, that would really play really well for these LMP cars in particular, especially if there's a bigger focus on endurance racing for the next game, for GT8. You could really see some really strong results from just, I mean, you'd have a lot of more endurance racing too, and if they ever did bring in Formula 1 cars, which I know they brought some in for GT7, but they didn't bring them in for GT Sport, but not GT7. I do kind of want them to bring that Mercedes back. Or I did see that they did a thing a while back with Lando Norris, and I actually thought that they were going to bring in, because I think that was during 2024. I was actually thinking they might bring in the 2024 McLaren. But look at this, over the time, MayJP has been really closing that gap up to Yuki, and Yuki's got a half-second penalty now. So that's really going to play in the favor of the British driver. So, watching on board now as the Audi closes in. He's got more grip throughout the chicanes. So that's going to really play in his favor. That's definitely where Yuki's going to lose a good amount of time here, as we have a drag race through the middle part of the Mulsanne. And now we're going to see he's going to go ahead and put the pressure on. Holding on for dear life is Yuki, but Yuki's going to lose it all pretty much right before Indianapolis, because that's where the penalty line is. So MayJP, he did lose a bit of time, but MayJP really doesn't have too much to worry about here, because he'll get that position anyway. As Nuco's really lost time to Comer just off the road, but now jumping back to MayJP versus Yuki. MayJP's got the better tire life. I think even a slightly bit of, well actually no, they're exactly the same on fuel. But MayJP is in a pretty good spot here, I'd say, to really get this overtake done. He doesn't need to do anything risky either. Excuse me. He doesn't have to do anything risky either. He just needs to wait for Yuki to hit that penalty line. Yeah, apologies about that. My voice box has really decided to give out today. It is a unfortunately common struggle with commentators. But nevertheless, we are going to go ahead and continue on with this race here, as the penalty line is coming up. There Yuki goes. He slows down through the penalty line, and then MayJP should roar right on through, and he does. No issue there for the British driver. So are you race engineering now? Because that'd be interesting to see. Oh, that is definitely lag if I've ever seen it. As BP does go ahead and have a little bit of contact into the pits, but jeez, look at those tires. Those tires are flame broiled. They are charred. They definitely resemble that marshmallow that I left in the campfire for a bit too long. I mean, those soft tires are definitely in a rough state. Now, here's the interesting thing, as MayJP will inherit a podium position as the other soft runner of Yuki comes into the pits. MayJP, he started on the second row, didn't have a great race start as he got punted pretty early on, but now he's going to go ahead and continue on with this race. He will pit in probably eventually, as the front runners still need to pit in. Comer now just extending that lead. Now got a 6.5 second lead here over Nuco. He has been putting on the laps, and we'll see if MayJP can start to close up to them. But King is definitely going to probably inherit that P3 position, I would imagine. BP has went on another set of softs, so he'll try to take these to the end. Because, I mean, in this series, you're pretty much going to only make one stop. You're not going to really try to focus on 2 stops, because really you're not going to go through that much resource management. But I think here's the thing. I think one of these two in the front are probably going to throw on the soft tires, I'd imagine, for the second stint. I'd be interested to see who, because it is a free-for-all series here for the LMP Masters, but normally sometimes you'd have a teammate from the Super Formula Series, and ooh, 3-second time pit for Yuki. Must have been on pit exit. He must have got even a pit limit violation, which those are brutal here in Gran Turismo. So he must have just crossed out line ever so slightly. That's pretty much all it takes for you to get hit with a 3-second slowdown penalty. Which, for those who are unfamiliar with how the slowdown penalties do work here in Gran Turismo, the car basically just shuts off the throttle for 3 seconds straight. And then you're able to get back going again. So it's a rough one. You lose more than just 3 seconds. You realistically lose about 5 or 6 seconds, if not more, depending on the part of the track. You'd probably lose about 10 seconds, honestly, if it was on the most on straight. But it is not on the most on straight. It's on the straight after that. So yeah, it's been a rough day in the office for Yuki. It's been a very rough day. Just taking a look now at everybody. Everybody is pretty far spread out right now. As a little bit of a freeze frame there, as the game really wanted us to stay with Nuka momentarily, but so our top 3 still need to pit in. Nuko's done the best on his fuel. He might be able to try to stick out another lap, but I think, honestly, like, if he does stick out, I think he needs to pit in this lap. Honestly, I think pitting in this lap would be ideal for pretty much all 3 of our drivers in the top 3 at the moment. Because you might be able to stretch out your fuel if you adjust the fuel map or do some really good fuel saving, but there is a chance that you might just run out of fuel. So you pretty much got to really pick your poison here. Either you run out of fuel by hard charging it, and ultimately you would spend less time in the pits because you'd have to take less fuel to get to the end of the Grand Prix, or of the race, I should say. It's effectively a Grand Prix, but nevertheless. Or if you try to go out long, you could set your fuel map, because these cars do have a fuel map that has settings between 1 and 6. The lower the number is, so basically the closer you are to 1 is how much more power you're using. So if you are running a 1, you are running full power, full fuel usage. But if you run it like a 6, then you're using less fuel. You're running a more lean setup. So your fuel goes on for longer, but you lose a lot of horsepower and a lot of speed, especially on a track that is so straight line dominated like Lasarth. It is just not ideal for you to really try to lose any pace because of fuel, just trying to have to save fuel. So probably your best bet if you want to manage fuel is you got to lift and coast quite a bit, which once again does hurt you quite a bit here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. King is definitely in a better spot. He did pit in quite a bit earlier, so he's in a good spot. I think he's in a very good position to take a podium here on his first race of the season. The owner of the Track and Racing League, a friend of ours, he's going to go ahead and he's pretty much, unless he has a disconnect or some other massive issue, then the German Greek driver is going to go ahead and get a P3, because May JP still needs to pit, Nuko still needs to pit, and Comer, they all need to pit, and they're all going to pit in at the end of this lap. I mean, I'd be very surprised otherwise, but I mean, it's pretty much no secret that these drivers are going to go ahead and jump on into the pits, as we are down to about 22 minutes left to go in the session. These drivers are going to fight it out tooth and nail, but it's just a question of how are you going to handle the rest of this race. Comer, I think, is going to jump onto the soft tires once he makes his pit stop. This is a pretty long pit lane, so he's only got 3% fuel. Nuko was only slightly better, so actually not even better at this stage. So I'll be really keeping an eye on what these drivers switch to. I want to say that it's probably going to be the soft tire, maybe. I think one of these drivers needs to risk it on a soft tire. Comer's going to come into the pits, swap out his tires, get some fuel. And the car is dropped. The Portuguese driver going to go ahead and gas up. Curious to see how much fuel he does take in this Audi. I think the Toyota is going to be better on management, but I mean, he's filled up to quite a good amount of fuel, 67% fuel. He did jump onto the soft tire. What about Nuko? What's Nuko going to go in and do? He's coming out of the pits as well, also on a soft tire. So both of these drivers opting to run that soft tire. As Comer must have had a bit of a moment because he lost a fair amount of time here as May JP comes in with 2% fuel. The British fan favorite here from High Caliber Racing is going to have King. King is like the one driver that does not deserve to get called Ping, just because his connection is usually really solid here, and it's been solid here today. The main car he was competing against, on the other hand, hasn't the smoothest of times with connectivity, but May JP, he might come out in, he'll probably come out in 6th, I'm going to say. He'll come out ahead of Kemajur, but I don't think he's going to come out ahead of Yuki. I think Yuki is going to surpass him here. Unless he goes really light on the fuel, which I don't think is going to be the case. AJP is out. He's on the soft tire, so he actually did come out ahead of Yuki. I wasn't expecting that, so he did pretty much, he lost 2 positions. He's down in the 5th now, but I mean, considering that he started in 4th and then got spun around on the first lap and dropped down to 10th, this has been a pretty strong recovery drive from AJP. King also is having a pretty good drive as I cut to him with a penalty. This has definitely not been Nuko's. I mean, Nuko's still going to get a ton of points from it, and Comer isn't even on the board yet for the championship, so his championship is under no threat. King expressing his displeasure about the time penalty he just received, the half second there. That's going to put him in pretty close proximity to BP, so we might see the French driver and the German driver go toe-to-toe again, bring out the automotive fisticuffs as they did earlier on. Now, a driver looking for some automotive fisticuffs to try to fight for that lead and for the win is Comer. Now, the sky is pretty, it's cloudy here. No rain is expected. There shouldn't be any rain today, so it is going to be cloudy, but no chance of rain and definitely no chance of meatballs, despite whatever meteorologists may tell you otherwise. But Nuko still trying to close the gap. He is closing it little bit by little bit, but don't know if it's going to be by enough. BP is on another set of soft tires, so, but he's got a half-second penalty as well, so this is going to take a little bit of a bit of pressure off of King's shoulders, considering that him and his rival are going to go ahead and have pretty much the exact same penalty, and he'll slow down at the same place shortly after Indianapolis. So, oh, and a trip into the gravel there for BP. It's going to slow him down a bit more as King goes out there. He is serving a slowdown, and then BP is serving a slowdown. So, once again, the gap pretty much remained net neutral, although I think BP is closing that gap a little bit by bit, but I think right now actually the gap is more ebbing and flowing as they make their way through the Circuit de la Sarthe. Shaking back in with some of our drivers a bit further down the field. Rogue hasn't had the greatest of times here in today's race, but he will finish ahead of 2 other drivers. He will finish ahead of their retirements from today's race, being JD Killswitch and Tallman. I wonder if for similar reasons. I know Tallman had connectivity issues, but I wonder if Killswitch disconnected or had a similar issue. The wind is picked up pretty heavily here. It is now 11.1 feet per second here, so that's going to blow the cars around a bit, but it's going to provide some really good downforce down this Mulsanne straight as the Porsche just rips through the circuit. Kemmerer also in the Hololive Porsche, going and making his way through the circuit as well. Kind of in a lonely race by himself right now. And then we also got Yuki, who is currently in P6 at the moment, and he just picked up a 1 second penalty, so that's going to really hurt things a bit. It's probably going to confine him to P6 as his best result, as we're down to about 17 minutes left on the clock. JP is having a pretty decent recovery drive. He is up in the 5th, about 30 seconds away from BP. And then we have King, Nuko, who's got a half-second penalty. Oh, that's going to really derail his race. And then Comer, who's pretty much just led for the entirety of the race. Here's what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to go ahead and do an onboard lap. Let's see. We've done an onboard lap with the Toyota. We've done one with the Audi, I believe. Let's do one with one of the Porsches. So we're going to hop on board. Let's hop on board actually with Kemmerer. We'll watch him go through at least down the back of the Mulsanne straight, and we'll be right back. Alright, we are back here, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you did enjoy riding on board with Kemmerer as he made his way down the Mulsanne straight in the Hololive Porsche. Just gonna do a quick run through as we're down to less than a quarter of the race distance left. Comer is in the lead. He's pretty much led from lights out to this point in the race. Nuko has been trying to claw it back, but just hasn't had the pace here today. King did eventually get past BP, and he is sitting in 3rd, or he's been in 3rd ever since the pit stop cycle. BP, who's been having an interesting race, he is up 1 position, but maybe under investigation due to the moment earlier, and BP is off the track. He is going rallying in that Porsche. I know Porsche has had a little bit of a rally history with the Dakar and a little bit of just WRC, but that is not what that LMP car is for. He gets a 2.5 seconds of time penalty for his troubles, and that's going to take a lot of pressure off of King. And then in 5th place we have JP, currently kind of in the middle of his own race now. He started in 4th, now he's in 5th, but still a very good recovery drive nevertheless. Yuki has had some issues on the circuit. He did get a 3-second penalty for a pit lane infringement earlier on, so the number 3 Undertale car not exactly having the greatest race of the season. And then Kemmerer, who we were just on board with earlier on, currently in P7, once again kind of in a race of his own, about 1:10 ahead of Rogue and about 23 seconds behind Yuki. And then Rogue, who is honestly had a bit of a rough race here today, but I think overall, I mean, he's not going to come in last because we did have 2 retirements. We had your local tall man and Kill Switch retire from the race. One due to connectivity, the other unsure. But we started with 10 drivers. We are down to 8 as we are coming down to the final 12 minutes of this session here. So drivers are going to get about a good 4 laps in, and maybe 5 depending on what they come across the line at. But still a ton of racing left to go here as we are in round number 4. So pretty much this is the official halfway point of the season. We got 3 rounds to go. After this we have Watkins Glen, and then we have a doubleheader in Japan with Fuji, and then our season finale 1-make race in Suzuka. It'll be the 2012 Toyota that everybody will be using, so that should be a really fun one here. So taking a look at the championship standings, Nuko is still going to be, he's still going to increase that championship lead, even though he is in P2, or, well, yeah, even though he's P2 on track, because his championship rival of Nuko is of Illusion is feeling unwell with a fever and a headache. So we do wish Illusion a very, very, very speedy recovery. Hopefully everything does shape up for him and he'll be back ready to go next week. But taking a look at the standings here right now in the Drivers' Championship, it is Nuko in the lead with 3 wins, 3 races, and 3 podiums, 61 points to his name. And then we have Illusion, Ghosted, Alex, Pixel, May JP, Cheminger, Flaring Aces, BP, Alvarks, Louch, Rogue, Duckadona, and Kill Switch. And there are drop rounds for drivers who have participated in 2 or more races. So those, if you have a bad result in those races, will not count. But I think you have to drop your 2 worst rounds. So as of right now, I mean, it's interesting for Nuko because he's won every single race so far, except for this one. This is the only race that it's not looking super likely that he's gonna win here. He'll still take a podium, but he's gonna drop all those points he got for P2. So, at least at this stage, and then he's just going to have to pick one of the race wins he has to drop that score too. But it's an interesting position for Nuko to really be in. But once again, it is going to reward consistency. Consistency is what's going to win you championships. And I think this is really going to swing it in his favor. So it is unfortunate. We are also, I haven't heard an update on it, but I do also want to wish Duckadono a speedy recovery because last time he was out due to a groin injury, which sucks, to put it bluntly. So that's another driver that is out for a while. Hopefully he does come back in stronger than ever and ready to come back in and compete, although I don't think he'll return. He may return at Watkins Glen 2 weeks from now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was out for the season. I would be disappointed because Duckadona has been a rapidly improving driver for the Red Bull Adidas fold. But sometimes, just like the internet issues we were talking about earlier, health stuff just happens sometimes. Sometimes you're just unwell, and sometimes things just don't go right, and sometimes your body just gives out. That's just the unfortunate part of life. We are down to about 8 minutes to go here in the race. It has been a very strong race here. We had some good battles, but this has really just been a race of attrition. It is the longest track on the calendar, so seeing a lot of these cars with these gaps isn't super surprising as Nuko uses all of the runoff and then some. Going through, still trying to chase hard and chase after Comer. But once again, we'll just have to see how this goes. Comer is not exactly pulling away, but Nuko's not exactly gaining enough either. He really needs to be gaining about a second a minute, so he needs to gain about Actually, yeah, second to minute would do him pretty good. But he needs about 2 seconds per lap, roughly, I would say, if he wants to catch him. So Nuko, I mean, you can see he's just fighting that Toyota. You can see him sliding on the exit of the Dunlop curve, just getting ready to start the Mulsanne straight. He is trying to get that Toyota to challenge Comer. But other than that, pretty much everybody else is on a pretty solid gap here. As Yuki is trying. Yuki's going to try to close the gap to MayJP, but MayJP I think is on a bit of a better tire situation. So I'm not expecting any of these positions to really change for the duration of the race. I think what we have here is exactly how the race is going to go ahead and finish. That is my commentator prediction. But yeah, I mean, Le Mans is once again such a historic circuit. And I mean, it's not a super hard track, but it is a track that's really going to test your management. It's going to test how you can manage your fuel, how you can navigate traffic, although this track has been so long, we haven't really seen traffic become an issue like we have seen in previous races. But once again, it is the longest track on the calendar. Next week, or sorry, 2 weeks from now, we head to Watkins Glen, and then Fuji, Suzuka, and then the GPL 250 at, I believe it is Monza, coming up. It will be hosted by B23. He's come up with the rules and regulations for that series, as well as, well, pretty much the entire event. So, once again, it'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. About 5.5 minutes left to go, so these drivers are probably going to get 2 laps in, roughly. They'll probably get another little, probably about 2 laps, I'd say. They finish this lap. Actually, you know what? Maybe 2.5 laps, I think. I think they'll finish this lap and then they'll get 2 more out. But once again, we'll see. 5 minutes on the clock. Now you really got to gain a second per minute if you are Nuko, if you want to go ahead and win this race. You got to really fire up that Toyota and push. And Comer's going to know this too. Comer will see that gap and say, well, I got to go ahead and just, well, I got to keep it clean first off. I got to keep it within the white lines. Try not to get a penalty of any sort that could really derail my race. Because if he gets a half-second penalty, that's going to allow Comer to, or that's going to push Comer back into Nuko by at least about 1.5 seconds. Because that's roughly the time you lose when you do those half-second slowdowns. You lose way more than just that 0.5 second because it takes a while for your car to actually get back up to that racing speed. But look at this, Nuko's got a 0.5 second time penalty, and I think that pretty much just seals this race for Nuko. For the first time this season, he will not be on the top step of the podium. He will reside in P2. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate for Nuko, but very fortunate for Comer. Comer won't have that information readily available to him unless he just looks back and sees the penalty. But even then, he's so far ahead that he's not even going to notice. So he'll probably figure it out once Nuko starts dropping way back. But yeah, I think this is pretty much Comer's race to lose at this stage. Oh, that is a accidental misclick on the keyboard, so it's going to jump to a blue screen really quickly. I do apologize for that, but we'll be back being here very momentarily. Back to a racing picture. I do, once again, really apologize for that, but we are back racing. You didn't really miss much. We're going to jump on. We're just going to jump on board with various drivers as we get closer and closer to the end of the Grand Prix. So, still a good amount of racing left to go here, about 3 minutes on the clock. So pretty much drivers will finish this lap and then they'll get another one. As the white flag will be waved at the end of this lap. So Comer will go ahead and do this lap and one more, so he'll end the race on lap 18. Nuko still has that 0.5 second penalty hanging over him. Just gonna look through for any other gaps. Everything else is pretty far spread out at this point. BP's pretty much, he'd have to gain about 2 seconds a lap if he wants to catch King, but well, here's the thing though, King might have to pit in again, so I think we'll see King try to manage his field quite considerably. We'll see when he lifts to go through the chicane. He didn't really lift a lot, giving sporadic taps on the throttle through the chicane. So BP is actually on a much better fuel setup than him at the moment. But he does have the half second penalty kind of hanging over him, so, and he's also on much worse tires. So the half second will slow him down quite a bit now. I do agree with the chat. MayGP did have a good recovery drive. Started in 4th, got nuked in turn 1, and now he's up into 5th. So, good recovery drive here from the British driver, the fan favorite, with about 1:20 left on the clock. I think this will be his last lap probably, so he'll finish a lap down from these drivers. But to be honest, I think just about everybody is going to finish a lap down. King might be the only other driver aside from Nuko to not finish a lap down, maybe. Maybe BP as well, but maybe the top 4 will be the only ones to finish on the lead lap. Everybody else will be down a lap. But that's not to knock any of the position. Not really going to be anything against any of the drivers from P4 and below, but it's just the pace of Comer and pretty much everybody else in that top 3, top 4. 30 seconds left on the clock. This will be the last lap for Nuko, for Comer. I know I got those names backwards. It will be for King as well. Last lap for him. I don't think it is going to be the last lap. I think this will officially be the last lap for BP. I don't think it'll come across the line in time. King is going to barely make it across the line before the timer runs out. Oh, no, wait. He did it. So King's race is done. He comes across the line. So it's only going to be our top 2 drivers finishing on that lead lap. They're going down the Mulsanne straight for the final time. It was a valiant effort from Nuko, just not quite enough. BP will come home in P4. MayJP will come home in P5. Yuki will come home in P6. Kemisher P7. Rogue in P8. And then the last 2 cars that are gonna try to fight across the line. It's gonna be these 2, but I think it's pretty certain who's gonna win this one out. So the timer is ticking down for these drivers to go ahead and finish up the lap. We'll do a quick run through the results. MayJP is now coming across the line. He'll come home in P5. A good recovery drive for the British driver. Yuki now gonna go ahead and make his way across the line for the final time. He's gonna come home in the P6 on those very burnt up soft tires. Not the race he would have wanted, but he will go ahead and finish. He'll do a quick donut and then just toe-mater it across the line. Comes across the line in P6. With Kemisher going to be the next driver coming across the line. He's got a half second penalty that'll be added to his time, but it's not going to change his position. He will come home in P7. He'll finish on lap 18 as Comer and Nuko are the last drivers currently racing on that lead lap. Rogue is still quite a ways back. Actually, Rogue did get lapped by Comer and Nuko, so he'll finish definitely, I think, 2 laps down officially, but it has been a strong drive from Comer. Pretty much was in the driver's seat. Pretty much just been in the driver's seat since the get-go of the race here. But yeah, King does round out the podium here. It'll be Nuko behind Comer, and that will be our podium for the race here. 50 seconds left on the clock. These drivers are still going to come across the line to de facto start P19, or lap 19, but it'll be the end of the race. Comer going very wide there across track. That might slap him with a half-second track limit violation, but not likely, as Comer is going to go in and cross the line here pretty shortly. with about 20 seconds left on the clock. Comer wins the 1 hour of Le Mans here. He takes victory in round 4, ending the streak of Nuko, who comes home in P2. And that is going to wrap up the race here with Rogue coming across the line with a few seconds to spare. He's going to make a run to the line. Is he going to get it before the timer runs out? Yes, he does, with a single second left on the clock. He's going to come across the line. And your winner for the first time of the season, it is Comer. Pole position. I think he got fastest lap as well, so I think that is a grand slam here for the Portuguese driver. Yes, it is. It is a grand slam here for Comer. He does take the win here ahead of Nuko, King, BP, May JP, Yuki, Chemisher, and Rogue. And then we have your local tall man and Killswitch not finishing the race. And that is, yeah, that's pretty much the end of the race here. So that's going to wrap things up here. I want to make a massive shout out to the chat. You guys have been fantastic all the way through. Thank you guys so much for tuning on in. And we'll be back 2 weeks from now when we take on Watkins Glen. But before we go, I do want to give a massive shout out to W.GG. Use promo code GPL at checkout for a 10% discount. And that way you can also support the league. Once again, on behalf of the Grand Prestige League, my name is Patrick Coleman, a.k.a. Ruckus. I've been your host and commentator for the Grand Prix. And we will see you guys next time when we take on Watkins Glen in New York. Have a good night.